What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! Today's guest of the Halftime Snacks features yet another absolute legend from the sports industry. Our guest's background is packed with awesome experiences in diverse companies such as Walt Disney, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Philadelphia Flyers. Today, he's a partner at 76 Capital, a venture capital and private equity firm that invests in seed and early stage companies in diverse industries, including sports and technology. This man is an expert in investor relations, fundraising, and company investments, and I can guarantee this episode will be a massive one. Ladies and gents, Chad Stender.
Ronan, thank you so much. Great to see you, my friend. Looking forward to having some fun today. Let's get it going.
Good to see you too, Chad. How's it going? How are you doing, man? How are you today?
Things are good. Enjoying the summer up here in the Northeast. We're based right outside Philadelphia. Having a lot of fun with the kids. And there is so much exciting and amazing things going on in the sports world. And I can't wait to share everything with you. So again, thank you for having me on the show.
That's super exciting to hear, man. Welcome to the Halftime Snacks. It's a super pleasure to have you here. Man, I want to kick off our conversation with an icebreaker, and I want to know what's your favorite sports memory, and I'm going to share mine while you think about yours. Mine is the goal of Didier Drogba at the UEFA Champions League final against Bayern Munich. I think it was minute like 87 or something. The game was already gone and he scored with his head, and man, I cannot stop remembering this memory. It's my favorite sports memory. What about yours?
Sure. I was super blessed. I came home from school in third or fourth grade, and my dad said, change your clothes. We're going to Philadelphia. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, so about an hour from Philadelphia. And I said, where are we going? He said, unfortunately, my friend cannot use his ticket tonight. We're going to, back then was the Spectrum, which no longer exists. For all of our Philadelphia fans, everyone knows the Spectrum really well, but it was that the main place in Philadelphia. And we ended up going to the Duke versus Kentucky NCAA basketball game that night. And had it not been for my dad's friend, unfortunately, not being able to take the ticket. So not only was it an amazing moment and experience for me and my dad, and bonding and getting to go. I was about 10 years old. But we saw arguably one of the greatest moments in the history of NCAA basketball with Christian Laettner making the shot. Everyone knows the shot. I was there. You're hugging, I'm hugging my dad. I'm hugging strangers. And it was something that forever will be, in my memory. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I'm in school. I think that was a Thursday and then Friday, or it was a Friday and Saturday. But you're sharing all the memories with your friends, and it was just the coolest thing ever. And the fact that I got to do it with my dad made it all that more special. So that was by far one of the coolest sports events I've ever been to, and sporting event moments. And that's the power of sport. That's the power that this industry brings to people, and really can affect people's lives for the better. So it's so cool.
100%, Chad. I feel like you remember the ones that caused you the biggest emotion. So I guess that for you that meant a lot between you and bonding with your dad. So I guess that's awesome, man. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Let's kick off our conversation with some of the stories, some of the things that you've been involved at. You've been in private equity, VC funding for a little bit over a decade. So man, you're one of the experienced ones. So let's talk on how the industry of private equity VC has evolved over time since you first joined. So how about you just can share with us couple of stories that depict the real change of how it was, how it is now, what has changed, what do you like better now that wasn't as good as before. So share with us a couple of stories.
Sure. So I started in venture capital in 2012, so almost a decade now. And while I have some amazing experience, our founder Wayne Kimmel started 76 Capital in 1999. So almost 22 years ago, and getting to understand, his experiences and what he's seen through. Back when he started, early stage investing really wasn't in vogue. There were a lot less early stage investors. And then as I came in 2012, by that point, it had really gotten saturated. And you look at certain instances. So Y Combinator started in 2005. You had Angel List and 500 Startups both starting in 2010. And kind of by 2012, 13, 14, it felt like everyone out there was an early stage investor. You had angel investors, you had individuals. It was crazy when you started looking at cap tables and what they look like. And I think it was very healthy for the ecosystem. I think from a venture capital standpoint, what I really felt and what I learned very quickly was you needed to have an incredibly strong brand to get the deals. So you had to be known for what you were investing in. You had to be a leader in the industry. And obviously you had to be able to identify and have the relationships with the entrepreneurs, because at that point you were competing. You were fighting for deals. The deals were getting priced to a level. Everyone talks about seed became A, so on and so forth. A became B, right? These rounds got more expensive. And so for that same check size, you were getting less ownership. And what we were fortunate to do is I really was able to work with Wayne, and then we brought in our third partner, John Powell, 2014, 15, 16. And we identified our strengths, our relationships, our networks. And I think we identified one of the largest macro trends in investing. And we were one of the first to do so on the early stage side. And that was the overall sports industry. And I will say definitively today, sports is going to be the largest investable category over the next 10 years. It is truly ripe for disruption. I think we were early to the game. We followed some of the macro trends with sports betting in Europe, gaming in Asia, the value of these sports franchises in America, the power of the athlete. And so what we did is we launched our fund. We also became partners in a sports marketing agency. We started working with athletes, and we don't do anything. We're 1,000 miles an hour. We go all in. We knew we had it right, and we were proving it out. And we were able to do so. We launched our first sports-focused only fund in 2017. And again, it's being known for what you're investing in, being able to access the deals. And to us, most importantly, I think we're a bunch of entrepreneurs. We happen to have our investor caps on most of the time, but we're a bunch of innovators, disruptors, entrepreneurs ourselves. And we saw an opportunity to really go at the sports industry. And so for us, the best part about getting to invest is getting to build together and work with our entrepreneurs. And to me, that is the most rewarding and best part of the job. And it's been really amazing the last 4 or 5 years. And we feel like we're just getting going here, Ronan.
So 10 years ago, there was no sports types of in like companies that were coming to you guys were like, oh yeah, so we're innovating in sports space. Was that like at all or not really?
Not at all. There's always been innovation and disruption around sport. I just think from the investor side, there really hasn't been a targeted and focused venture and private equity the way you're starting to see it now. And I think in the later stage, you're seeing much more of it. But on the early side, there are a few of us. And everyone wants to ask us, what's your competition like? Who else is doing it? Right now, it's very collaborative. You just had your past guest with Keith Bank, someone we're close with. KB is one of the few outfits in America that's kind of in a similar space. I literally just emailed Keith last night at about 11 p.m. sharing an opportunity. So to me, it's very collaborative. There's a lot of opportunity, but we invested in a company. We invested in Whistle Sports in 2000, I think 12 or 13, kind of right when I got going with 76 Capital. At the time, it was 6 employees. They're in the meatpacking district in New York. The other investors was Mia Hamm, Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning, right? The Gatorade Big Three. One of the founders came from Gatorade, and us. And it was pre-market, pre-revenue, really pre-product. But they were going to disrupt the kids and the youth generation of sports content. And so that company, so we did make a sports investment, I would say, back in 2012, 2013. And actually that company just exited this past year to 11 Sports. And so a couple of things there, right? This takes time when you get in early, but I think people have been investing in sports. I think the idea to what I said about branding and being known for is becoming more vogue around, what we're doing on the venture and private equity side. But again, this is early. I think we're just getting going, and we want more involved because this is a large ecosystem. and there's a lot of opportunity.
What's the best investment that you've made? I mean, you've been an investor in VC for almost 10 years, but probably also a private investor for the rest of your lifetime. So, what's the best investment that you ever made? What was something that you took a bet on and were successful?
So I'll give you two. And the first one was an investment I made 12 or 13 years ago. And the answer is going to sound cheesy, but I truly mean it. Was, getting to meet my wife, whom I met through sport. Right? We interned together at the Wells Fargo Center. So again, it's all about sports for me. But getting to build our family together, we have 2 kids today, and really kind of building your own team was by far the best investment. And I always say, like, you're stupid for going with me, but I thank my stars for it. So I know that's a little bit of a cheesy answer, but I mean it. It's really valuable to have a strong base on the home front, which kind of allows me to go out and do this job to my fullest. And it's kind of a 24/7. You're always on. You're running hard constantly, and it's what I love. I'm passionate about what I do. I don't ever feel like, oh, I've got to go to the office today, or I've got to do this. It's, of course, challenging at times and stressful, but I can say I absolutely love what I do. From the investment front, the investment that I'm kind of most passionate about really occurred. It started in the spring of 2019, and we invested right at the end of the year of 2019. We invested in a company called Line Library. But at the end of the day, what we really did is we backed the entrepreneur. We identified Sam Ratner as someone that truly understood the sports betting space, truly understood gaming, and thought in a way. We kind of dub him the Mark Zuckerberg of sports betting. And we had been going to all these conferences and all these events and seeing startups after startups, pitches after pitches. And it was one of those things. We sat down with Sam for an hour, and we got up from the table, and I looked at my business partner, Wayne, and I said, that's our guy. I don't know exactly if he knows what he's going to go do. I don't know. There's a lot of TBD here, but that is our guy. And that's what we do. We identify big opportunities. We back the entrepreneurs, and we figure out how we can add value. And so we invested in 2019. I'll move the story along. Our first board meeting, we were at NBA All-Star Weekend in Chicago, where they're based out of. We sit down for the board meeting, and Sam looks at me in the eye and says, we need to pivot here. And I said, oh, okay, what does that mean? We're going to become a sports book. And I said, you know what? Let's go. He explained why. We gave the opportunities, and we became Victory. And we launched and we went. And we were fortunate we got to bring in Scott Butera, who we made the introduction, and they became business partners. Ultimately, later that summer of 2020, we introduced them to their acquirer, right? So we made the connection to Fubo and Fubo TV. It was an insane fall. I always try to stay even keel. Like, people always ask the best advice. As a venture capitalist, you got to try to maintain. You can't get too high or too low. And no matter how much I tell myself to maintain, it was a roller coaster ride. So many times we thought we were about to get acquired last fall. It didn't happen. We thought we might be going public via a SPAC. Didn't happen. And then David Gandler, the CEO of Fubo, basically, they went public October 2020, told the street that they were going to get into gaming, and they were either going to innovate themselves or they were going to acquire. They went out and found a banker, and Victory was one of the targets. Obviously, incredibly biased, but I think it was the best choice. They found 2 of the most talented entrepreneurs in the space, and they're building together. They're going to be launching this fall, first in Iowa. They just announced Pennsylvania is going to be their 4th state they're going to have access in. And it's something that was amazing. It did happen quickly. It was about 13 months from investment to exit, and that's not typical in our industry. But I not only got the ups and downs, but I can honestly say I became deeply, good friends with Sam Ratner. I consider him a business partner, but also someone that I'm a good friend with, and lucky to have that success. And it's been amazing for our investors and our venture fund. And it was a pretty incredible deal.
Man, we're really lucky to be able to hear this story firsthand from you, Chad. Thank you also for sharing that. I feel like we're really getting the blueprint of the way you think, the way you've been strategizing investments, and your whole career around finance, and now, of course, sports. So I want to ask you if there's any specific thing that you think about, any thought that you have that is not really widely shared with people you work with, or people in the sports industry, or maybe also people in finance. Something contrarian, something that you think, this is maybe the way, and not everyone really believes it's the way of doing things, but you surely believe in it. And why do you think it's contrarian? Why do you believe in it? And where do you think it really is taking that thing that you're thinking about? So maybe I'm getting too abstract here, but let's just kick off with that thought that you have, and maybe we'll move along as you tell us.
I think I know what you're going for here. And from my seat, I'm at an interesting age, right? I just turned 40 last year. And so I'm commonly speaking with people that are kind of the generation above me, maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s. But at the same time, are employees. And I still have many conversation, and I'm fortunate to get to mentor and work with what I consider the youth today, late teens, early 20s, going to college, coming out of college, starting your careers. And it's this interesting spot where I'm too old to be hip and cool with the young ones, but at the same time, I feel like I'm finally at the place where I can stand toe to toe and have that conversation with anyone. And it's really interesting. And what I get to see from my seat is this amazing blend and convergence of sport, music, gaming, and what I think is already happening. But again, when I sit and speak with anyone kind of the generation above me, saying that gamers today are going to be the most popular athletes moving forward. And I think really anyone under 30 is already kind of seeing this and experiencing this. And I don't know how contrarian that is, but when I make that comment and they look at me, anyone kind of older, and they'll say, "What you mean, like video game players?" And I'm like, "Yes, professional video game players or streamers. They don't have to be playing competitively, but they're entertainers, they're influencers, they have the social capital." I mean, the power of social media is incredible. I think LeBron is the most powerful person in the NBA today. I think what he did in free agency was incredible. I think he was more powerful than his team. And so what I think you're seeing today is kind of the equivalence: gamers, musicians, artists, and athletes. And there's this amazing blend that's happening. And so I think moving forward, when you say your top 10 athletes, I think kind of this youth generation is just going to name gamers, artists. And in their minds, the word athlete is going to mean something very different. And so again, I'm already seeing this today, but I think this is happening very quickly. I think it's incredibly exciting. I'm really looking forward to the day when people talk about esports and they're not calling it, the other sport, right? There's traditional sports and esports. Like, I think it's just going to become sports. And the word is changing in the definition of an athlete. And thankfully, NIL is finally here. The NCAA is going to figure it out, or they're never going to figure it out. But finally, these athletes have an opportunity to monetize and to get paid what they should have been doing. I think 20, 30, 40 years ago, I actually wrote a paper in college, and it was 20 plus years ago, about how athletes should be getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. And so I think it's an amazing time. And I'm so excited to get to invest and disrupt today via 76 Capital on our investment thesis.
Would you say that esports got more popular because of COVID, or it wasn't really a catalyst that made it more present in people's lives? What do you think about that?
I think esports going into the pandemic was amazingly popular. Almost a third of the world were gamers, identified as gamers. Over 200 colleges in the United States today, before the pandemic, were offering scholarship to be an esport athlete. I think what the pandemic did is it accelerated the industry. Unfortunately, we were stuck at home and everyone was binging TV, but they were also gaming. So no doubt did it accelerate the industry. But I think before the pandemic, specifically in the United States and North America, gaming had already taken off, where there was almost a big organic attempt 10 years ago. And I think the last 2, 3, 4 years, there's no turning back. And again, I can't wait for the day where we just talk about sports and gaming as part of the conversation, and it's not a separate kind of traditional versus gaming. And again, it's so exciting and so much opportunity out there.
I think it's super interesting because, if, as you mentioned, athletes, well, musicians, entertainers, they're also athletes, in their own sports. But this blend that they have with esports, professional players joining, live streams with, DJs or musicians and playing, Fortnite or League of Legends, and just being there, as athletes, but also in esports, entertaining. It's just, this new blend of entertainment, games, and streaming, and I think it's super fascinating just to see it happening. How new athletes are just getting more and more into gaming, and of course they're not maybe as good as let's say Ninja, or it's a kid that's very professional about it, but it's just very 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 fun to see how it blends. It's like how in the NBA All-Star weekend you had the stars playing, so you had musicians and you had famous people. So I think that kind of like esports is also opening doors for that kind of mix and matching, between people from different industries, and it makes up for great entertainment. So I'd say that I'm really looking forward for what's gonna happen in the esports sector of sports in the future. Chad, you've been fundraising for a couple of years. You know how it happens, how it works. What do you think are the key ingredients for a successful fundraise? 3 or 4 that you can share with us here openly. Of course, this is not investment advice, but if you can keep it as unbiased as possible, we'll appreciate it.
I think when it comes to fundraising, we're constantly dealing with it, whether it's our portfolio companies, but the other side of the coin, at 76 Capital is a venture fund. We fundraise as well. And I think people in industry and not just in industry, just in general, lose sight of that at times, that you're not shaking the tree. You're not going to a pot of money that sits on the sidelines. You're fundraising as venture capitalists. And to me, fundraising, whether you're a company, venture capitalist, outside of venture and private equity, it's a sales process. And what drives success to me is creating interest, urgency, and being persistent, and getting to a yes, but also being able to get to a no. And I think, unfortunately, we all live in the world where we'd rather be comfortable in the land of maybe, but it's the worst space to be in. And one of the things I love to say is you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And unfortunately, you have to sometimes drive to those no's to get to the yeses. You've got to be persistent and you've got to push, but you've got to create the momentum. And that's in any fundraise. And obviously, the more success you've had, the more prepared you are, the more you can anticipate, the more proactive. There is a lot of things that you can do to make it a successful fundraise, but really creating the urgency and having thick skin and being willing to push to get to hopefully the yes, but don't sit in the world of maybe. And I tell this to all of our entrepreneurs. Do not sit there and just hope that one of these maybes is going to come to fruition. You've got to push to get to an answer, because time is our most valuable commodity, right? The importance of the fundraise is to get the capital, but it's our use of time. We only have so many minutes in the day. And if you spend all your energy in kind of this 80% of the land of maybe, you're wasting a lot of time and energy. And you got to get those maybes down to maybe from 80% to 50%. So then you can focus on driving to the yeses. And that to me is what we try to practice and preach, and work with our companies and work with ourselves. Because again, we're fundraising ourselves.
Time is the most valuable commodity, man. I love that this time having this conversation with you has been the most valuable commodity of a long time, Chad. I've been enjoying this halftime snack so much that it has gone so fast, and man, we've been learning so many things about you, your story, VC, private equity investments, the sports industry. If there's any sport that you're a big fan that if you'd get a proposal for a new startup or new technology in that sport, would probably push you a little bit more to invest or to look at it, or do you have no preferences when it comes to sport? Like what is it that you think about when it comes to like the specific sport?
I think it's a great question. I think that can be a really big mistake. I think letting your bias and your passion for what you enjoy push towards an investment. So it's a little bit of a caveat here, right? If you can be incredibly valuable and add value to that investment and accelerate that company because of your background in the sport, that might make sense. But if you come out of the football world and all you're doing is focused on finding a deal, pushing to get to a deal, it might not always be the best strategy. Then we underwrite all of our companies on at least a 10 times return, our investment criteria, and you have to stick to what you know and what you do best. And so you can't force deals. Again, now if it's kind of even to even, and if we have the experience in a certain sport category more so, that will lead to a better investment for us. I'd say on the passionate side, I'm a soccer guy, I'm a American football guy, or a football guy, excuse me. But at the end of the day, I'm most passionate about soccer. It's what I grew up playing, and it's what I enjoy the most. But from an investment criteria, I don't care if it's cricket, darts, gaming, soccer. We're going to make the best investment possible based on our thesis and criteria.
Yeah, I guess it's a real challenge, to keep your your emotions, your preferences aside when you're being presented new and different types of technologies for different sports. Try not to judge them by what you prefer, what you like most, but mostly by what do you think really can disrupt the industry, right? I guess. I mean, I'm not an investor, but I guess that's part of it. Would you say that there's any other challenge that you can share with us when it comes to investing in sports that you kind of like have to beware or have to be careful when you do invest or when you don't, or before you decide? Is there any other thing that you would suggest, the new and up and coming talent in the industry to pay attention to?
I think it's like all investment categories. There's a lot of moving pieces. As the investor, you have to understand what your criteria is and what you're looking for. And because we get in early, we'll invest pre-seed, we'll invest almost with the founding team to kind of Series A. We love to build. And for that, we take big chances for the big upside. And again, we underwrite everything for at least a 10 times return. And so you have to know what your thesis is, what you're focused on. And there's a lot of amazing entrepreneurs. There's a lot of focused startups. But in the sports space, there's also a lot of startups that, in our opinion, do not have the go big opportunity for what we're looking for. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to be successful. It just means that it's not necessarily the right fit for us. And so you've got to be careful of, if you cannot properly underwrite it for what you need, that you politely pass. And the beauty is, because we get in early, we follow these entrepreneurs and we follow these companies. And a no today doesn't mean it's a no tomorrow. And I can give you plenty of example of an investment we've made that we said no initially, and we've been able to follow the growth, and we still get them maybe at the seed round or maybe at the A round when we passed on kind of that initial capital raise around friends and family. So again, it's knowing who you are and knowing what you do best.
I love it, man. I love it. It teaches a lot about a life as well, not only about investment. Know yourself, know what fits you, know where you want to invest your time and money, and go for it, man. If you're liking it, go for it. Why not? And as you said, a no now is not a no forever. So also think about things that have rejected you in the past, and think that maybe in the future you'll eventually get there. Chad, man, it has been such a fun conversation. I can't leave without asking you a more personal question, man. I want to ask you, who's one person you admire and why?
I think the one person that I would love to sit down with is President Barack Obama. And I think historically, when we look back, and I'm not talking about 5 years from now, I'm talking about 50, 100 years from now, the economic downturn that he was handed, we were recession into a potential Depression, and just being the first African American president, right? There was so much that he had to endure that it's going to be pretty wild what the history books will tell. But by far, I think Barack Obama would be the person that I would enjoy to get to spend any time with.
That's amazing. So, Barack, if you're listening to this, man, you gotta sit down with Chad for a dinner or another halftime snack, maybe. But Chad, man, I want to thank you so much for coming to the show. It was an absolute pleasure to host you. Such an inspiring and thoughtful lesson that you've given to all of us today. I really appreciate it, man. Can't wait to see what's gonna happen with you and 76 Capital in the future. I'm sure it's gonna be pure success, man. So I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, man, thank you so much for coming to the Halftime Snacks. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.